Hi everyone, welcome to this floats preview video for the Raccoon Olympics in English 7A lesson 1.05. This is Mrs. Alexander. Let's jump in. The first thing I want you to focus on are these three key words. This helps give you a good idea of the lessons, skills, and standards that you will be working on throughout reading this short story, or I should actually call it short narrative nonfiction. And also, it is on your student guides, which are located at the beginning of lesson 1.05. So we'll be focusing on viewpoint, purpose, and tone in this lesson. Your student goals, which are also found at the beginning of your lesson and also on your student guide, are author's viewpoint, to determine the author's viewpoint and purpose; tone, describe the tone of the text; and word meaning, determine the figurative meaning of words and phrases in a text. Here's an active reading strategy as we're focusing on reading strategies throughout the entire semester, but specifically in Unit 1. We're really focusing on strategies that will help us to become better readers, to comprehend and analyze the text that we are reading. This one's all about making predictions. When you make predictions, you're actively engaging in the text. You're asking questions, which will help guide your comprehension in understanding the plot or the development of a text. When you ask yourself questions or make predictions about what you think a text may be or what will happen next, you're actively getting your brain involved in the text, which helps lead to better comprehension and then in the long run, a good analysis of the text. Be sure as you're reading to check your predictions. Go back and see if what you predicted actually came true or if it was wrong. Always be sure to revise your predictions. You can do this in your language arts notebook, on a sticky note, on the PDF if you're annotating the PDF. I do have a video about that in the resource section of your course. So making predictions with Raccoon Olympics, your lesson will walk you through this. But think about, before you read the Raccoon Olympics, what do you visualize when you read the title, Raccoon Olympics? If you saw the beginning side of this video, I visualized the Olympic rings and raccoons. What do you think the text is about? What other images and details might the text present? And what tone will the text take? The genre of the Raccoon Olympics is a creative narrative nonfiction. So the Raccoon Olympics falls into this genre called creative nonfiction. Creative nonfiction describes factual events in a literary way. Creative nonfiction combines the accuracy of a newspaper article with the literary techniques of a novel or short story. So this thing actually happened, but they put it into a narrative. They tried to add narrative elements like plot, setting, and characters. Okay, here's also something very important to make sure you're understanding in the lesson. Point of view versus viewpoint. Point of view describes who is speaking or telling the story, and viewpoint describes how the narrator perceives the story or the subject of the text. So notice these two things are different. They both have the word view in them. But point of view, think about first-person point of view. The writer uses first-person pronouns like I, me, mine, my, our, ours, and we. Then you have second-person point of view. The writer addresses readers directly using you, your, yours. And then third-person point of view, the writer uses she, her, hers, he, his, him, it, its. Now, viewpoint is the author's viewpoint expressed how the author feels about the content of the text. So it's not whether it's written in first, second, or third person point of view. That's point of view. Viewpoint is how the narrator or the author is feeling towards the subject or content of the text. So notice these two differences because you will be assessed on these on your assessments. Okay, the other thing this lesson is focusing on is word choice and tone. So word choice and tone, we have figurative and literal meaning. So a figurative meaning is implied by a word or phrase. But you'll notice up here, authors describe characters, events, and settings in lots of different ways in their text. Sometimes they say exactly what they mean, and sometimes they mean something figuratively. So your lesson will really walk you through analyzing, practicing figurative meaning, understanding the figurative versus literal meaning of words or phrases. So remember, figurative meaning, it shouldn't be taken literally. It helps the reader understand maybe the author's viewpoint of something. So for example, if you say you have a ton of homework, you're being figurative. If you actually had a ton of homework, a ton is 2,000 pounds, and I'm pretty sure your homework does not weigh 2,000 pounds. So when you use the phrase, I have a ton of homework, that's a figurative meaning phrase. All right, so tone. Tone refers to the attitude the author has towards the character or events. An author's tone or attitude towards the subject can be friendly, sarcastic, optimistic, serious, or sad, along with some other adjectives that fall in those categories of emotions. You can learn a lot about tone by analyzing word choice. So if you look at the way the author is wording things, if the words are very sad or depressing, maybe the author is having a sad tone towards the content of the text. So your lesson 1.05 will also walk you through this. The other thing to focus on in this lesson is author's purpose and position. The author's purpose for writing. You've probably seen this before, heard of this before. The author could either inform, 2, entertain, 3, persuade, 4, describe, or 5, explain and instruct. So as you're reading the Raccoon Olympics, or after you're done reading the Raccoon Olympics, consider what was the purpose of writing. And the author's position. Please don't make note of this right-hand box here. That is not part of this slide. But when we're thinking about author's position, position refers to the way the author thinks about or views a subject. So it's very similar to the tone. But think about the position would be their attitude, right? So their position could be a tone or an attitude that they take towards a subject. All right, here is a quiz time tip for you. You will be asking in the next quiz to identify word choice and meaning. And these are 3 words that I would highly recommend you jotting down. And these are sentences from the Raccoon Olympics. You'll be asked to think about what these words mean in the context. So let's look at this first example. Skulking. I had seen raccoons before, staring shiny-eyed into the beam of my flashlight and skulking down storm drains, but never up close in daylight. Consider what this word skulking means. As I read this sentence, I realize that the raccoon is wary. It's worried. The next one, reek. My hands still reek of snake musk from spending the morning looking for snakes in the woods around the lighthouse. What does this word reek mean in this sentence? Well, snake musk, must not smell good. So I'm going to think it means unpleasant. And breathtakingly. Even in late June, Lake Michigan is so breathtakingly cold that jumping in the water feels like getting punched in the stomach. But maybe the raccoon's fur helps them stay warm. So for me, I'm going to look at the word cold and warm, and I'm going to think that breathtakingly it's taking my breath away. It's so cold, it's taking my breath away. So it must be frigid. It must be so cold. So I'm thinking of that word frigid. And the author's purpose. This is also a quiz tip. So overall, the author's purpose of the Raccoon Olympics is to entertain readers with an interesting anecdote from the author's childhood. There is a theme that's also you can take away from this narrative nonfiction. So consider that as you are reading and going through lesson 1.05. And the other purpose, the other author's purpose, is consider what was the purpose of the author comparing Paul, which is the main character from the Raccoon Olympics, to Abraham Lincoln. Well, he wanted to paint a vivid picture of what Paul looks like. So keep that in mind as you're reading or rereading the Raccoon Olympics. The purpose of comparing Paul to Abraham Lincoln is to give readers an understanding of what Paul looked like. Many people are familiar with Abraham Lincoln, so they would be familiar with putting Paul looking like Abraham Lincoln. Thank you so much for watching this Flips preview video on the Raccoon Olympics for English 7A Lesson 1.05. This is Mrs. Alexander, and I will see you on the flip side. Sincerely, Mrs. A.